For me, this seems similar to a child torturing ants with magnifying glass. I want the American public to know that not everyone in Afghanistan were targets that needed to be neutralized.
Next, Britain's failure to expel immigrants who pose a potential risk to society has again been brought sharply into focus. As RT's Polly Boyker reports, a mentally unstable man from Kenya who says he's killed hundreds is now free to walk the streets of England.
He says he's murdered up to 400 people with a machete in his native Kenya, killed police and taken part in female genital mutilation. But a court ruled that 27-year-old John Thuo is free to stay in the UK. He arrived illegally back in 2003, but when the Home Office tried to deport him, he appealed. And an immigration tribunal ruled that Thuo suffers from schizophrenia and had made up the atrocities. He was granted leave to remain in the UK because he's at risk of committing suicide if he returns to Kenya.
You would normally think that this is not an appropriate person to bring into the UK. The problem is, if you look at the European Convention of Human Rights, it is possible for him to stay here, because unless he's a war criminal of the sort that we've seen in other parts of the world, like Sierra Leone or Rwanda during the genocide and such like, or or Milosevic or that sort of character, unless he's one of those, he falls short of that, he's going to be allowed to walk around the streets of Britain, and that's the problem.
John Thuo isn't the first potentially dangerous individual that the Home Office have tried and failed to deport. Jordanian terror suspect Abu Qatada has avoided extradition for over a decade. Qatada's lawyers argue it's against his human rights to return to Jordan, where he could face torture. Not all the countries signed up to the European Convention on Human Rights choose to follow it. The French and Italian governments deport dangerous individuals first and then hear their appeals.
I think one of the problems we have often in this country, not always, but often, is until something goes drastically wrong, we don't seem to want to find the adequate solution or effective solution for the problem. We tend to leave things as they are. Unless the problem is big enough and something really does go wrong, in the sense that someone like this goes on the streets and actually starts hacking people.
But it did happen. Over here in Woolwich, off-duty soldier Lee Rigby was hacked to death in broad daylight by two men wielding meat cleavers. The murder shook the country. The suspect had been known to authorities, and questions have been asked about whether or not the police could have done more to prevent the murder. And yet a week later, we learn that a mentally unstable man who claims to have killed hundreds of people gets to stay in the UK. The ruling once again raises questions about whose safety the British immigration judges are protecting. Polly Boyko, RT, London.